The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been going on for 6 hours, and nobody was closer to a solution. Hyan sat in the human delegation booth, watching the aliens argue with each other while their worlds burned. The holographic displays showed the same terrible story over and over again. 12 worlds had fallen to the Vrakith swarm in the last 6 months. Billions of lives had been lost. The swarm kept coming, kept adapting, kept consuming everything in its path. Hyan had been Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council for 3 years. In that time, he had learned that the galaxy's older civilizations looked down on humanity. They called humans primitive. They said Earth's people were too young, too aggressive, too dangerous to be trusted with real power in galactic affairs. Humanity had been given associate membership, nothing more. They were allowed to watch and listen, but their votes counted for almost nothing. Now everything had changed. The Vrakith had appeared from the dark spaces between spiral arms, a hive mind species that existed only to consume and expand. They did not negotiate. They did not stop. They simply took what they wanted and destroyed anything that resisted. The Council's conventional military forces had tried to stop them and failed. Every battle strategy that had worked against other threats failed against the swarm. The Vrakith learned too fast, adapted too quickly, and cared nothing for their own losses. The Council's supreme commander, a towering insectoid named Vreth, finally called for silence. His translator rendered his clicking speech into standard galactic common. "We must consider alternatives that were previously unthinkable," he said. "Our traditional approaches have proven insufficient. The swarm does not fight like any enemy we have faced before." Hyan felt his communication device vibrate. A private message from Earth's military command. They had been monitoring the session and had sent him a single sentence. "If they ask, you know what to offer." He did know. He had hoped it would not come to this. Another council member, a crystalline being from the Korean hegemony, spoke up. "We have analyzed the military histories of all member species, searching for tactical innovations we might have overlooked. One species stands out for its unusual approach to warfare." The being's faceted surface turned toward the human booth. Earth's military history shows patterns of combat efficiency that exceed predictions based on their technological level. Hyan kept his face carefully neutral. He knew what was coming. The humans have experience in what they call asymmetric warfare, the Korean continued. Their historical records show a capability for unconventional tactical thinking. We formally request that Earth contribute military forces to the defense of Council space." The chamber went silent. Every delegation was looking at the human booth now. Hyan stood slowly, feeling the weight of what he was about to set in motion. Next to him, Captain Jiho of the Terran Defense Forces tensed slightly. Jiho had come along as military advisor, but this decision was beyond military advice. This was about choosing what humanity would become in the eyes of the galaxy. The Council previously determined that humanity was too dangerous for full membership, Hyan said carefully. "Our methods were considered too brutal. Our history too violent. You called us warmongers and savages. Has something changed?" Vreth's translator hummed. "We are desperate. The Vrakith will not stop unless we find a way to stop them. We need warriors who understand unconventional warfare. We need soldiers who can think like predators." Hyan looked at Jiho. The captain's jaw was tight. He knew what Earth's leadership was prepared to authorize, and the knowledge clearly disturbed him. But he gave a small nod. The decision had already been made, back on Earth, weeks ago, when the analysis teams predicted this moment would come. "Earth will help," Hyan said. "But we need the Council to understand something first. You are asking us to send our best weapons against an enemy that shows no mercy and takes no prisoners. Our most effective forces are not the ones we show at diplomatic functions. They are not the ones who follow standard galactic warfare protocols. We understand that war requires difficult choices, Vreth said. We are prepared to accept human military doctrine. No, Hyen said quietly. You do not understand. But you will. He took a breath. Earth will send specialists in asymmetric warfare. They will operate with full tactical autonomy. They will use whatever methods they determine to be necessary. And the Council will not question their actions until the Vrakith are defeated. One of the other Council members, amphibious delegate from Kelsos, spoke up. That is an unusual request. All allied forces operate under Council oversight. Then find another species to save you, Hyen said flatly. Earth's offer comes with these conditions, or not at all. The Council chamber erupted in debate. Some delegates argued that humanity was trying to seize power. Others said that desperate times required desperate measures. The arguing went on for another hour while Hyen sat and waited. He did not feel good about what was happening. He felt sick, actually. But the galaxy needed saving, and Earth had exactly what was needed. The question was whether the galaxy was ready to see it. Finally, Vreth called for a vote. The resolution passed with a narrow margin. Earth would send military forces with full tactical autonomy. The Council would provide logistical support, but would not interfere with operational decisions. After the session ended, Jiho followed Hyen back to their shuttle. Neither man spoke until they were alone in the secure cabin. Then Jiho said what they were both thinking. They have no idea what they just asked for. No, Hyen agreed. They think we are sending soldiers. Disciplined military forces who will follow the rules of civilized warfare. And instead, Hyen pulled up the classified files on his datapad. Names and faces appeared, each one marked with red security flags. War criminals, psychopaths, killers. The ones Earth had locked away in the deepest prisons and tried to forget about. We are sending the monsters, Hyen said. The ones we have spent centuries trying to suppress. The ones we built entire legal systems to control. The galaxy asked for humanity's help, and we are going to give them exactly what they asked for. Jiho stared at the files, his face pale. God help us all. God help the Vrakith, Hyen corrected. They are about to learn why humanity scares itself. The shuttle began its journey back to Earth, carrying the authorization that would change everything. The Galactic Council thought they were getting soldiers. They thought they understood what human warfare meant. They were wrong. The galaxy had asked for help, and humanity was about to show them what real monsters looked like. Major Soman stood in front of the blast door marked Obsidian 7 and wondered if she was about to make the worst mistake of her life. Behind that door were some of the most dangerous human beings ever born. Killers, torturers, war criminals who had been locked away where they could never hurt anyone again. And she was about to offer them freedom. The authorization from Earth's security directorate had come through 3 days ago. The orders were clear and terrifying. She was to select prisoners from the Obsidian facilities, who had military experience and a record of extreme tactical effectiveness. Psychological stability was not a requirement. Ethics were not a consideration. The only thing that mattered was their ability to win battles through any means necessary. The door opened with a heavy mechanical sound. Soman walked into the facility with 4 armed guards following her. The warden, a stern man named Young-ho, was waiting inside. I still think this is insane, Young-ho said without greeting. Your objection has been noted and overruled, Soman replied. Show me the ones on the selection list. They walked through corridors of reinforced steel. Each cell was designed to hold prisoners who were too dangerous for normal prisons. Some had killed hundreds. Some had committed acts so horrible that their trial records were classified. All of them had been deemed too broken to ever return to society. The first cell held a man named Daeun. His file said he had been a black operations commander during the Mars insurgency. He had ordered the massacre of civilian settlements suspected of harboring rebels. Over 8,000 people had died on his orders, including children. When he was finally caught, he had shown no remorse at all. Dayan looked up when Selman stopped at his cell. He was a lean man with cold eyes and a face that showed no emotion. "Come to stare at the monster?" he asked. "Come to offer you a job," Selman said. She pulled up the mission briefing on her datapad. The Galactic Council is facing an extinction threat. They need soldiers who can win an impossible war. Your record shows tactical brilliance. My record shows I murdered thousands of people, Dayan said flatly. Yes, it does. Selman met his eyes. Fight the Wraith swarm with no rules, no oversight, and no restrictions. Win the war and receive a full pardon for all crimes. Dayan was silent for a long moment. Then he smiled, and it was the smile of a predator. "You are letting us off the leash. We are pointing you at an acceptable target," someone corrected. "No rules of engagement?" "None. No war crimes tribunals afterward? Complete amnesty upon victory." Dayan stood up and walked to the transparent barrier of his cell. "When do we leave?" The next cell held Unji, a neuroscientist who had conducted experiments on living human subjects without their consent. She had been trying to develop new interrogation techniques and had tortured dozens of people to death in the process. Her research had been destroyed, and she had been sentenced to life imprisonment. Unji listened to the same offer with clinical interest. "You want me to develop weapons against an alien species," she said. It was not a question, among other things. "Will I have access to live specimens?" Selman felt her stomach turn. "Whatever you need to complete the mission." "Then I accept. I have been wasting away in this cell when I could be doing real science." Yunji's eyes were bright with excitement. An entirely new biology to study. The possibilities are remarkable. The third selection was Kangman, who had led guerrilla forces during the Titan uprising. His tactics had been brutally effective. He had used civilian populations as shields, had rigged entire cities with explosives, and had shown a complete disregard for any life that stood between him and his objectives. Over 40,000 people had died because of his campaign, and he had never expressed the slightest guilt. "Why should I help you?" Kangman asked after hearing the offer. "Because the alternative is staying in this cell until you die," Selman said. "I have made peace with that. Have you?" Selman pulled up tactical data on the Wraith swarm. "Look at this enemy. They adapt to every conventional strategy. They learn from every engagement. They cannot be beaten by traditional military forces." She paused. "You specialized in making the impossible work, in finding ways to win when you had no resources and no support. This enemy needs someone who thinks like you do." Kangman studied the data for several minutes. Then he looked up with a slight smile. "You need a monster to fight monsters. Yes, I accept your offer. But understand something, Major. You are not hiring a soldier. You are unleashing a force of nature. When this is over, the galaxy will remember what humanity is capable of. They will fear us." "Perhaps they should," Selman said quietly. Over the next week, she selected 47 prisoners from various Obsidian facilities. Each one was a specialist in some form of extreme warfare. Some were snipers who had committed assassinations. Some were demolitions experts who had destroyed cities. Some were interrogators who knew 1,000 ways to break a person's mind. All of them were brilliant, ruthless, and completely without conscience. The final briefing took place in a secure facility outside Geneva. All 47 selected prisoners sat in an auditorium while Hyan himself gave them their mission parameters. "The Galactic Council thinks they are getting human soldiers," Hyan said. "They expect discipline, order, and restraint. They are wrong. You are not soldiers. You are weapons. And we are aiming you at an enemy that threatens all sentient life in the galaxy. He brought up images of the Vraekith swarm. This enemy does not negotiate. It does not retreat. It exists only to consume. It has no fear, no doubt, and no mercy. It is a hive mind that learns from every battle and adapts faster than conventional forces can counter. Dayan raised his hand. Rules of engagement? There are none. Do whatever is necessary to defeat them. Oversight? Minimal. You will have tactical autonomy. Yunji spoke up. Ethical constraints? The only constraint is victory. How you achieve it is your decision. Kanmin leaned back in his chair. You realize what you are doing, Ambassador. You are telling us that the things we were imprisoned for, the things that made us criminals, are now acceptable as long as we direct them at aliens. Yes, Hyen said. That is exactly what I am telling you. The room was silent. Then Dayan started laughing. It was a cold, terrible sound. Others joined in, and soon the entire auditorium was filled with the laughter of humanity's worst nightmares. Somin stood at the back of the room and felt a chill run down her spine. She had helped select these people. She had offered them freedom. And now she understood what she had done. They were not releasing soldiers to fight a war. They were releasing demons. And once the demons were out, could they ever be put back? The training period was scheduled for 2 weeks, but the selected prisoners needed almost no training. They knew how to kill. They knew how to win. All they needed was information about the enemy and transport to the battlefield.hyeon. Watch them board the transport ships and turn to Somin. Do you think we have made the right choice? I think we made the only choice, Somin said. The galaxy needed saving. This is what it costs. The ships lifted off, carrying humanity's darkest secrets toward the stars. The monsters were unleashed. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. General Tech of the Korean hegemony had fought in wars for 30 years. He had commanded fleets, led planetary assaults, and earned decorations from 7 different species. He thought he understood warfare in all its forms. Then the humans arrived at Kesseris 4, and everything he knew became useless. The human transport ships landed at the military staging area 3 days after the Council's request was approved. Tech had prepared facilities for what he expected to be a standard military deployment. Barracks, command centers, supply depots. He had arranged briefings with his staff to coordinate joint operations. He had even prepared a formal welcome ceremony. The humans ignored all of it. 40-7 people came off the ships. Not the thousands of soldiers Teak had expected. Just 47 individuals who looked at the prepared facilities with something like amusement. Their leader, a cold-eyed man named Daeyeon, met with Teak for exactly 10 minutes. We need 3 things, Daehyun said. Transportation to the Vraekith-controlled zones, access to your intelligence on enemy positions, and a promise that you will not interfere with our operations. That is unacceptable, Teak replied. All Allied forces operate under coordinated command. We have protocols, strategies, and rules of engagement that must be followed. We do not follow your protocols, Daehyun said. We were given full tactical autonomy by the Council. If you want us to fight, you give us what we need and stay out of our way. If you want traditional soldiers, call someone else. Teak wanted to argue, but his orders from the Council were clear. The humans were to have complete operational freedom. He authorized access to the intelligence networks and provided transport vehicles. Then he watched as the 47 humans gathered their equipment and disappeared into the contested territories. That was the last time he saw them for 48 hours. The first sign that something was wrong came when a Vraekith communication node went silent. The swarm relied on constant communication between all parts of the hive mind. Nodes did not just stop functioning. Tech sent a reconnaissance drone to investigate. What the drone found made no sense. The node was still intact, but every Vraekith organism in a 2-kilometer radius was dead. Not killed in battle, just dead. The body showed signs of some kind of neurological attack, but there were no weapon signatures, no evidence of what had killed them. 6 hours later, another node went silent. Then another. Then 3 more at once. The Vraekith forces in the region began to behave erratically. They abandoned strategic positions. They retreated from areas they had held for weeks. Some organisms simply stopped moving and died where they stood. Teak demanded answers. The human liaison officer, a man named Minho, who seemed deeply uncomfortable with his assignment, explained what little he knew. Eunji has been studying captured Vraekith specimens, Minho said. She has found ways to exploit their neural connections. When you attack one part of the hive mind in the right way, you can send cascading failures through the entire network. What kind of attacks? Teak asked. Minho looked sick. Psychological torture. The Vraekiths share sensory information across the hive. Yunji is making them feel things they have no evolutionary framework to process. Fear, pain, despair, and because they are all connected, the trauma spreads like a disease. That is barbaric, Tick said. That is what you asked for, Minho replied. The situation got worse. Tech's observers reported that Daehan's teams were using tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. They were not fighting battles. They were conducting campaigns of terror. In one region, they captured a Vraekith warrior and kept it alive while subjecting it to continuous pain. The warrior's suffering was broadcast through the hive network, causing every connected organism to experience the same agony. Entire formations of Vraekith broke and fled, something the species had never done before. In another area, they contaminated the biological material the Vraekith used for nutrition. The contamination did not kill quickly. It caused a slow deterioration that the hive mind could feel spreading through its system. The Vraekith abandoned that entire sector rather than risk further infection. Kangman took a different approach. He studied the Vraekith's tactical patterns and identified their decision-making nodes. Then he launched precision strikes against those nodes, but he did not destroy them completely. He damaged them just enough to create confusion in the hive mind's coordination. The Vraekith forces began making mistakes, contradicting their own orders, fighting against their own strategic interests. Teak demanded a meeting with the human command. He found Daehan in a makeshift base that looked more like a butcher shop than a military facility. There were Vraekith specimens in containment fields, still alive, being subjected to experiments that Teak could not even identify. This must stop, Teak said. You are violating every principle of warfare. This is not combat. This is torture. Daehan looked at him with those cold eyes. We are winning. Not like this. There are rules. Standards that civilized species follow even in war. Your civilized rules were not working, Daehan said. That is why you called us. You wanted someone who could beat the Vraekith, and we are beating them. If you do not like our methods, then you should not have asked monsters to solve your problems. I did not ask for this, Teak said. Yes, you did. You just did not understand what you were asking for. Daehan walked to one of the containment fields. The Vraekith are a hive mind. They process information differently than individual species. What you call torture, I call tactical advantage. We are learning how they think, how they communicate, how they make decisions. And we are using that knowledge to destroy them more effectively than your conventional forces ever could. Yunji joined the conversation. The Vraekith have been expanding for centuries because they learn from every battle. They adapt faster than their enemies can innovate. But they have never faced an enemy like us. They have no defense against what we are doing because their evolution never prepared them for predators who hunt for psychological satisfaction rather than survival. You are enjoying this, Teak said, horrified. Of course we are, Yunji replied. We were imprisoned for having these impulses. Now we are being rewarded for them. The galaxy spent decades telling us we were monsters. Now the galaxy needs monsters, and we are proving our worth. Teak returned to his command center and filed an urgent report to the council. He detailed the human methods and recommended immediate intervention. The response came back within hours. Continue operations. Do not interfere. The humans were achieving results that conventional forces could not match. 30% of Rakith forces in the sector had withdrawn or been destroyed in less than a week. The price for those results was something Teak could barely comprehend. He watched as the humans systematically dismantled Rakith positions using methods that would haunt his nightmares for years. They did not just defeat the enemy. They terrorized them. They made the hive mind afraid, and the worst part was that it was working. Reports came in from other sectors. Everywhere the humans deployed, the Rakith retreated. Not because they were losing battles in the traditional sense, but because they were encountering something they could not process. An enemy that did not fight for territory or resources. An enemy that fought because they enjoyed it. One of Tech's subordinates approached him with a question. General, the humans are winning. Should we not be grateful? Teak thought about the containment fields full of tortured organisms. He thought about the biological weapons designed to maximize suffering. He thought about Daehan's cold smile and Yunji's clinical enthusiasm for her experiments. We asked humanity for soldiers, Teak said quietly. They sent us their nightmares instead. Yes, they are winning. But I fear what we have unleashed far more than I ever feared the Rakith. The war was turning in the Council's favor. But the cost was measured in something more than lives. It was measured in the loss of innocence, in the terrible knowledge of what sentient beings were capable of when all restraints were removed. The galaxy had asked for help, and humanity had shown them exactly what kind of help they could provide, the kind that came with teeth. Commander Minho had served in the Terran Defense Forces for 15 years. He had fought pirates, put down rebellions, and defended colonies from raiders. He thought he understood what soldiers did in war. Then he was assigned as liaison to the Specialist Forces, and he learned that he had been playing at warfare while real monsters had been locked away in darkness. The reports came across his desk every day, and each one made him feel sicker than the last. On Dravis Prime, Daehan's team had established what they called a research zone. The name was a lie. It was a torture facility on a continental scale. They had captured hundreds of Rakith organisms and kept them in states of controlled agony, broadcasting their suffering across the Hive network as a weapon on Kelvin Station. Yunji had set up laboratories that would have made historical war criminals look merciful by comparison. She was dissecting living Rakith, mapping their neural pathways while they were conscious and aware. She claimed it was necessary to understand how the hive mind processed information. Minho suspected she was just enjoying herself. On Terminus 7, Kangmin had turned an entire moon into a psychological warfare experiment. He had studied how the Rakith responded to different types of threats and was systematically exposing them to scenarios designed to create maximum mental trauma in the hive mind. The Rakith had abandoned 3 nearby systems, rather than risk exposure to whatever Kangmin was doing. The worst part was not what they were doing. The worst part was that they were competing with each other. They shared their results and tried to outdo each other's innovations. They were not just following orders. They were having fun. Minho filed his reports with Earth Command, and waited for orders to shut down the operations. The orders never came. Instead, he received a message from Hyan himself. The Council is pleased with the results. Continue current operations. Do not interfere with specialist activities unless they directly threaten Allied forces. That was it. No acknowledgement of what the specialists were doing. No concern for the ethical implications. Just a command to let them continue. Minho decided he needed to see Daeyun face to face. He took a shuttle to Dravis Prime and requested a meeting. Daeyun agreed immediately, which somehow made Minho more nervous. The research zone was worse than the report suggested. Minho walked through corridors lined with containment fields. Each one held a Vraekith organism in various states of distress. Some were being subjected to sensory overload. Some were experiencing simulated isolation from the hive mind. Some were undergoing procedures that Minho could not even identify. Daeyun met him in his central control room. He looked healthier than he had in prison. His eyes were bright, and he moved with energy and purpose. He looked like a man who had found his calling. "Commander Minho," Daeyun said, "come to check on the monsters?" "I came to understand what is happening here," Minho replied. "What is happening is that we are winning a war. The Vraekith controlled 47 systems when we started. They now control 12. In another month, that will control none. At what cost?" Daehan gestured at the containment fields. "At the cost of enemy suffering. Is that not what war is supposed to be about? Making the enemy suffer until they cannot fight anymore? Not like this. This is torture. Yes, it is." Daehan showed no shame at all. "We are torturing an enemy that was going to exterminate entire civilizations. We are using every tool at our disposal to defeat them. You gave us permission to do whatever was necessary. Did you think we would be gentle about it? I thought you would have some limits. Some line you would not cross." Daehan laughed. "We are the people who already crossed every line. That is why we were in prison. You released us and pointed us at an enemy and told us to win. We are winning. If you do not like how we are doing it, then you should not have asked us to do it at all." "You are enjoying this," Minho said. "Of course I am. For the first time in years, I am allowed to be what I actually am. No pretending. No hiding, no guilt. The galaxy needs someone who can do terrible things, and I can do terrible things better than almost anyone alive. Why would I not enjoy finally being useful?" Minho felt a chill. What happens when the war is over? When the Vraekith are defeated? What do we do with you then? "That is a problem for future you," Daehan said. "Right now, you need us. After the war, maybe you lock us back up. Maybe you execute us. Maybe you give us medals and pretend we are heroes. I do not care. I am going to enjoy this while it lasts." Minho left Dravis Prime and went to Kelvin Station. He found Yoonji in her laboratory, surrounded by equipment and specimens. She was humming while she worked, completely absorbed in her research. "Commander," she said without looking up, "have you come to tell me to stop? Would you stop if I ordered it?" "No. My authorization comes from the Council itself. You have no authority over my operations." She finally looked at him. "But you are not here to give orders. You are here because you are disturbed by what we are doing, and you want to understand why we are doing it." "Yes." Yoonji set down her instruments. "The Vraekith are fascinating. Their neural architecture is unlike anything I have ever studied. They process information collectively, which gives them incredible tactical flexibility, but also creates vulnerabilities that individual species do not have. When I discovered I could introduce mimetic patterns that cause cognitive errors in the hive mind, I realized we could win this war without fighting traditional battles at all, by torturing them, by exploiting their weaknesses. Is that not what warfare is? Finding the enemy's weak points and attacking them? She smiled. You think I'm a monster? You are correct. But I am a monster who is saving the galaxy. Does that not make my monstrosity acceptable? No, Minho said. It just makes it useful. There's a difference, is there? History is written by winners. If we defeat the Vrakith, then our methods will be justified. If we fail, then our methods will be condemned. But the methods themselves do not change. Only the context changes. Minho visited Kangman last. He found him on Terminus 7, watching displays that showed Vrakith response patterns to various psychological stimuli. Kangman greeted him with a knowing smile. You are on a tour of humanity's worst, trying to understand what you have unleashed. Something like that. I can save you time, Commander. What you have unleashed is the truth about humanity. We are not the civilized species we pretend to be. We are predators who learn to wear masks. You took off our masks and told us to hunt. We are hunting. This is what we actually are. Not all humans are like you. No, but all humans could be like us under the right circumstances. We are just the ones who stopped pretending. The ones who embraced what we are instead of fighting it. Kangman turned back to his displays. The galaxy wanted to believe that humans were just another civilized species. A bit aggressive, maybe, but ultimately reasonable and controlled. We are showing them the truth. Humans are the most dangerous predators in the galaxy because we do not just hunt for survival. We hunt because we enjoy it. That is not something to be proud of. Why not? It is what makes us effective. The Vrakith are retreating because they have finally encountered something they cannot adapt to. They can learn tactics, but they cannot learn to defend against enemies who fight for pleasure. There is no evolutionary response to that. Minho returned to his ship feeling like he had looked into an abyss. The specialists were winning the war, but they were also revealing something about humanity that could never be hidden again. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way. He filed another report to Earth Command. This time, he included a personal note to Haiyan. The war will be won, but we have paid a price that cannot be measured in lives or resources. We have shown the galaxy what humans are capable of when all restraints are removed. The specialists are not soldiers. They are the dark side of human nature given form and purpose. When this is over, we will have to live with the consequences of what we have unleashed. Haiyan's response came quickly. I know, but the galaxy was dying, and we had the only cure. Sometimes, the cure is worse than the disease. That is the burden we must carry. Minho looked at the latest tactical reports. The Vrakith were in full retreat across all fronts. Victory was approaching, but victory had never felt so much like defeat. The war ended not with a final battle, but with silence. The Vrakith swarm, which had seemed unstoppable for so long, simply withdrew. They abandoned every contested system, retreated beyond the mapped regions of the galaxy, and went quiet. The hive mind had encountered something it could not process, could not adapt to, could not defeat. So it fled. The Galactic Council declared victory. Celebrations erupted on 1,000 worlds. Species that had faced extinction could now rebuild their civilizations. The threat was over, but the council members who knew what had actually happened did not celebrate. They gathered in emergency session to discuss a new problem. What to do with the humans who had won the war for them? Haiyan sat in the human delegation booth and watched the aliens argue. They wanted the specialist forces withdrawn immediately. Some wanted them put back in prison. Some wanted them executed. A few had the courage to suggest that the pardon should be honored as promised. They saved the galaxy, one delegate said. We owe them their freedom. They are monsters, another replied. We cannot allow them to remain free. They are too dangerous. We made a deal, Haiyan reminded them. Full pardons in exchange for victory. They delivered victory. Now we must deliver the pardons. The debate went on for hours. Finally, the council reached a decision. The pardons would be honored, but the specialist forces would be restricted to human space. They would be Earth's problem, not the galaxy's problem. Hyen accepted the terms. He had expected nothing better. He took a transport to Cerberus Outpost, where the 47 specialists had gathered to await the council's decision. He found them in a conference room, looking relaxed and unconcerned. Dayan greeted him with a slight smile. "So, Ambassador, are we heroes or criminals?" "You are pardoned criminals," Hyen said. "The council has agreed to honor the terms. All charges are dropped. You are free, but," Yunji prompted, "but you are restricted to human space. The council does not want you operating in their territory." Kanman laughed. "They are afraid of us. Good. Fear is healthy." Hyen sat down across from them. "What will you do now? You cannot return to normal society. Not after what you have done. Not after what you have become." "We never expected to return to normal society," Daehin said. "We knew what we were before this war started. The war just gave us permission to be honest about it. So what is your plan?" Daehan looked at the others. Some silent communication passed between them. Then he turned back to Hyen. "We have discussed this. We have a proposal. I am listening. We will go into voluntary exile. There are unmapped regions beyond council space, systems that have never been colonized. We will establish settlements there. We will remove ourselves from your worlds, from your sight, from your conscience." "Why would you do that?" Hyen asked. "Because we know what we are," Yunji said. "We are weapons. Weapons do not retire to comfortable lives. Weapons do not integrate into peaceful society. Weapons wait until they are needed again. You think there will be another war? There's always another war," Kangman said. "The galaxy just learned that the Vrakith can be beaten, but only by using methods that civilized species find unacceptable. When the next threat comes, when the next impossible enemy appears, the galaxy will remember us. They will remember that there are humans who can do what needs to be done. And you will be waiting," Hyen said. "We will be waiting," Daeyoung confirmed. "Not in prison. Not under guard. We will be free, living our own lives, building our own society. A society of people who understand what we are and accept it. But when the call comes, when the galaxy needs monsters again, you will know where to find us." Hyen considered the proposal. It solved multiple problems. The specialists would be gone, no longer a reminder of what humanity had done. But they would not be destroyed or imprisoned, which would honor the pardons. And they would be available if another crisis arose. "I will present this to Earth's government," he said. "But I think they will accept." "Of course they will," Yunji said. "We are too useful to destroy and too dangerous to keep close. Exile is the perfect solution." The proposal was approved within a week. The Galactic Council, relieved to have the specialists removed from their territories, provided resources to help establish the exile colonies. They wanted the monsters gone, and they were willing to pay to make it happen. 3 months later, Hyen visited the first exile colony on a world they had named Cerberus. It was a harsh planet, but the specialists were making it work. They had built settlements, established agriculture, and created a functioning society that he found Daehyun overlooking a valley where construction was ongoing. The former prisoner looked content in a way Hyen had never seen before. "It suits you," Hyen said. "It does. We are building something new here. A place for people like us. People who do not fit in civilized society. Do you regret anything you did during the war?" Daeyan considered the question. "No, I did what I was trained to do, what I was built to do. The only difference is that this time I was doing it with permission." That makes all the difference. The galaxy will remember what happened. They will remember what humans are capable of. Good. Let them remember. Let them fear us a little. Fear breeds respect, and respect breeds caution. Dayan turned to face Haiyan. The galaxy looked at humanity and saw a primitive species. They dismissed us. They thought we were no threat. Now they know better. They know that behind the civilized face, there is something that can tear apart their nightmares. Is that what you want? For the galaxy to fear humanity? I want the galaxy to understand humanity. We are not good or evil. We are what the situation requires. Put us in peace, and we build civilizations. Put us in war, and we become monsters. The galaxy asked for monsters, and we delivered. Now they know what that means. Haiyan left Cerberus and returned to Earth. He filed his final report on the specialist program, then requested a transfer away from diplomatic service. He had seen too much, knew too much. He needed time to process what humanity had become. 6 months after the war ended, the Galactic Council received a transmission from deep space. It was in Vrakeith communication protocols, and the translation teams worked for days to decode it. The message was simple and terrifying. Warning to all Vrakeith elements. Avoid human territories. Avoid human contact. The humans are not prey. The humans are not enemies. The humans are the darkness between stars. They hunt not for survival, but for pleasure. They cannot be defeated because they cannot be understood. Maintain maximum distance from all human space. The message repeated over and over, sent through every Vrakeith communication channel. The hive mind, which had conquered hundreds of systems and destroyed countless civilizations, was warning itself to stay away from humanity. One of the council members brought the translation to Haiyan. What does this mean? Haiyan read it and allowed himself a small smile. It means the Vrakeith learned their lesson. They encountered humanity at its worst, and they will never forget it. Should we be concerned about the implications? No. We should be grateful that the Vrakeith are intelligent enough to recognize when they have been beaten. Haiyan handed back the datapad. The galaxy wanted to know what humans could do when all restraints were removed. Now they know. The question is what they will do with that knowledge. They fear us now. Yes, they fear us. Perhaps that is not entirely bad. Fear can prevent wars as effectively as friendship can. Years passed. The exile colonies grew and thrived. The specialists built lives for themselves in the frontier regions, far from civilized space. They had families, established communities, and created their own culture. But they never forgot what they were, and they remained ready. Haiyan, now retired from government service, visited Cerberus one last time. He was old now, and the trip was difficult. But he wanted to see what had become of the monsters he had unleashed. He found a thriving society. Children played in the streets. Markets bustled with activity. People lived normal lives, as normal as they could be when everyone in the colony shared a dark history. They met him at the landing site. The former prisoner was older too, with gray in his hair. But his eyes were still sharp. "You came to see if we became monsters again," Dayan said. "I came to see what you became," Haiyan replied. They walked through the settlement together. Dayan showed him schools, hospitals, farms. He showed him a community that had been built by people who understood darkness but chose to build something in the light. "We are what we always were," Dayan said. "But we are also more than that. We proved that monsters can serve a purpose. Now we are proving that monsters can build as well as destroy. Does the galaxy still fear you?" "Yes, and that fear keeps them cautious." There have been no wars between council species since the Vrakeith were defeated. No one wants to risk giving humanity a reason to unleash us again. So peace through fear. Peace through understanding. The galaxy understands what humans can become when necessary, That understanding prevents the necessity from arising. Hyan looked at the settlement, at the people living their lives. I spent years wondering if we made the right choice. If unleashing you is worth the cost. And now? Now I think that maybe the galaxy needed to see what humanity truly is. Not just the civilized surface, but the capacity beneath it. We saved the galaxy, but we also showed them why they should never push us too far.